Welcome, gentle viewer, to Weird Tales of Nature. If you're watching this video, or at least listening, you're likely as not wondering just what this channel is about. Of course, you can probably guess something of the content based upon the title. Still, it would be impolite of me not to clarify matters further. The natural world is a complicated place, filled with myriad interconnections ranging from the plainly obvious to the vanishingly subtle. There are stories hidden away beneath the mundane surface of the world we are familiar with. Some of these stories are wondrous, while others are horrifying. Some are both. This channel is meant to be a repository of a fraction of these weird tales, a place where one can visit to listen a while to a strange story of the hidden side of the natural world. One might find a tragic tale here, an oddly uplifting account there, and perhaps even a few explanations of the patterns underlying so much of life as we know it. You might be wondering who I am. Really, that's not terribly important. If you require a name to call me by, Doc will readily suffice. As for what sort of doctor I might be, it's enough to say that here at least I am a collector of weird tales and strange secrets of nature, an aficionado of the curious and the eldritch, and a scholar of the little everyday oddities so readily overlooked. One might ask just what sort of oddities I could possibly be speaking of. Please indulge me a little while, and I will attempt to explain at least somewhat. When I speak of the odd little secrets tucked away in the dark corners of the natural world, I am not speaking of cryptids or other such legends. Such myths, whether true or not, are fascinating in their own right, but I am more concerned with other tales. Stories of things at once better documented and proven, and yet more obscure and unknown to most people as they pass through their daily lives. Those little everyday horrors and oddities that tend to happen without us even noticing. Sometimes we fail to notice these things because they take place out of our sight, perhaps beneath the ground or beneath the waves. Sometimes they happen too slowly for us to perceive. Quite often, they are simply too small for most people to bother with. To be fair, how often does a person usually stop and simply stare at the ants scurrying about on the sidewalk? It is almost a pity that most of us hurry along, compelled by some important errand or another. If we stop to look a little closer, peer a little deeper, we may often uncover something quite unexpected. There are entire worlds hidden away all around us, with denizens both fascinating and terrifying. There are visions of beauty and hideous nightmares, and sometimes the two can be surprisingly difficult to distinguish from one another. It is as if we spend our lives largely confined to a small, rather mundane town surrounded on all sides by a vast, dark forest shrouded in mist. Even a short walk beneath the shadowed canopy would bring us into contact with sights to rival the most ecstatic dream or the most chilling nightmare. We would encounter phenomena that challenge our understanding of the world and our own place therein. But I suppose this language is getting rather grandiose. It's all well and good to speak of nebulous strangeness and wonder hidden away just out of sight. A sensible mind requires more than such sweeping declarations, though. At this point, you might be asking for examples. Fair enough. I shall oblige. To briefly follow just one line of inquiry, life is strange up close. Often, the deeper you look into something, the weirder it gets. Ask any amateur with a decent microscope and a bit of enthusiasm. No doubt they could describe all sorts of mysterious oddities they have stumbled across. A clump of moss becomes a cathedral of towers with stained glass windows held aloft and set with shining emeralds, where eldritch creatures slither and squelch in the soft green shadows below. A rotting log becomes a twisting labyrinth inhabited by pale, blind monstrosities, guarded by soldiers bearing sharp scythes and sometimes more ingenious weapons. A simple ant hill becomes a place stalked by the most pernicious of deceivers, who are invited into the homes of the martial and militaristic tenants to feast upon their most precious resources. A tide pool becomes the setting of a drama played out in slow motion as headless predators creep on myriad legs, seeking out hapless prey to overpower and slowly digest alive. I could go on, but I believe you probably get the idea. Nature is varied and ever-changing, and this will be reflected somewhat in the different tales I intend to share here. Some will be bright and wonderful, and perhaps even heartwarming at times. Some will be considerably darker and more disturbing. It's quite likely that some will have a bit of both. Regardless of the content, every tale will be at least a little bit strange, and hopefully of at least some interest. It is my hope that you will walk a few of the strange hidden paths with me, serving as your humble guide. So follow a little while along the lonesome trails that wind through mist and shadow. With a bit of luck, you might find these journeys to be enjoyable. In any case, I look forward to the next foray into the dark forest.